Hi, everyone. It's another Mondays with Melissa, and I am cold today. You guys, I'm recording this in July, and you're not listening to it too long after I'm recording this, and I'm freezing. I have my sweatshirt and my pants on. And the funny part is like, I think it's like 75 or something, but it just feels so cold because it's been in the 90s the last few days. So, anyway, that's where I'm at today. Little check in there. I'm excited today because today we're going to chat about building community. If you listened to the episode last week with Lisa Qualls, she talked about so many different things. And so you can go listen to it or find the show notes on my website and read through all the different things that we talked about. But one of the things that we talked about towards the end was the importance of community. And Lisa and Melissa Corkum have co-authored this book here, Reclaim Compassion, and we did talk about the book. So if you are interested at all in knowing more about the book, you should listen to the podcast the episode last week. But one of the things that she talked about, and we also talked a little bit about this when Melissa Corkum was on my podcast a few weeks ago, is that they offer so much more than just this book. They have Reclaim Compassion groups. They also have one-on-one coaching. Melissa Corkum offers the Safe and Sound protocol. Melissa also offers Enneagram coaching and anyway, all that to say that there's different ways for you to find groups. And so there is a Reclaim Compassion group that you can find at their website, and I will link that in the show notes. But what I'm going to talk about today specifically is community. And so if you have heard any of my story, which I have my whole story in episode 7, I believe, but I talk about, I'm just very authentic. And so I'm very open about what I've been through in my past and my history. And so if you know me at all, based on listening to this podcast, you know that we have a family that has adopted twice. So my oldest daughter is adopted by my husband, and then my husband and I adopted our youngest child. And with adoption comes hard. And that's not a bad thing. It's just the reality. And so one thing that we have really pushed for in our home, and something that I see missing in a lot of homes of the families I work with, is how important community is. And that if we don't have good, healthy community, we can oftentimes find ourselves isolated or feeling alone or feeling like nobody gets us, or I'm the only one that feels this way about my child, or I'm the only way that has these struggles with getting through each day. And the reality is you're not the only one. And the only way that we can actually experience that me too, like, yes, I see you, I get it, right, is to be in community with those people. And so community is important so that we don't end up isolated and alone. But we also have to be careful that we don't find ourselves in a community that just agrees with us and never pushes us to do better, never pushes us to grow. I think in my personal experience, so that's what I'm going to talk about right now, I have seen these types of communities in the churches or religious areas. And I just would caution you to be careful. There can be really great community groups through the churches, through religious organizations, faith-based organizations, but please just be really careful that those groups are not ones that become, all about an agenda. And that if we want to do things differently, like for instance, again, this is just my own perspective, my own experience. But if I'm in a group that is really grounded within the faith-based community and is a group that believes in spanking, when I push back and say that's actually not healthy for my child and I'm not going to do that, maybe this group also comes from background of adoption or foster care, raising kids from hard. And so I joined this group thinking, great, this is going to be great. I will be able to meet other people who are in the trenches, so to say. But then if I come across the discussion of something that I don't agree with, like spanking, for instance, and I push back and say, I just don't think that would be healthy for my child because of what they've been through, because of what we know. And then I'm shamed for that and told, well, biblically, you're supposed to, or that's how God wants us to parent, or spare the choice, or spare the rod, spoil the child, right? Then I'm in a community group that is not probably the healthiest for me, even though they mean well and have good intentions. We have to be really careful that we're not in a community that has an agenda, that is incapable of seeing that there might be a new and better way, or that doesn't push us to do better and to grow ourselves. And so those are just kind of my cautions when you're looking for community. And so with that, how do we find good community? I'm going to give you 3 things to really look at, consider, or 3 things just to consider when you are looking to expand your community. And this takes effort. It doesn't just, sometimes community comes to us when we're least expecting it, or, through this, we have kids in school. And so we build community through the school system, maybe through the PTA or our child's class, or sports that our kids are involved with. And so that can be a thing, right? Organic. But when we're talking about trying to find community of people who get what we're going through inside the 4 walls of our home, when things can get really hard, when we're talking about trauma awareness and helping our kids heal and all of that, we have to be intentional about finding community and finding good community that is going to help us continue to grow and thrive eventually. And so these are 3 areas that I would just suggest you look at when you are looking for community. So the first is to find community of people who are in similar situations to you. So I gave the example earlier of, a church group that is for foster and adoptive families. Great. So that's a great starting point, right? That's where we would say, maybe it's a church group for foster adoptive families. Maybe it is a group through the school for relative caregivers or for grandparents raising their kids. Maybe it is a group through the community center that is a parenting class for 8 weeks for anybody in the community. And I'm a parent. Yay, that would be something that, would be like a similar situation, right? Or I'm an adoptive parent, so I could maybe go to some of those groups that are for foster and adoptive families. So looking for a group that is geared towards others who are in similar situations as you. Okay. So raising teens, parenting, foster adopt families, raising a relative. These are all areas that there are groups out there that can help with that. The Reclaim Compassion groups are specifically for families who are raising kids from hard, and they are, they're experiencing blocked care as caregivers. And so that would be a group where the similar situation would be they're burnt out, they're tired, they need to figure out how to reclaim their compassion for their kids. Okay. So that's the first one, looking for groups where the individuals would be in similar situations as you. The second would be looking for groups that are inclusive and don't have a political agenda, religious agenda, personal agenda. So we want to be really careful about that. Again, there are groups through churches, through schools that those can be political, those can be religious, right? But and it may mean that you go to the group a few times to determine like, what is their agenda? So we just want to be careful. I'm not saying that groups that are through churches or political, like the school system potentially could be political, would be that way, but they have the potential to be that way. So we need to just be really cautious with that. We want to make sure that we're a part of a group that is not going to be a bunch of people that are just like us, as far as like I am a white female in my 40s. So I wouldn't want to be in a group with just a bunch of white women. I would want to be in a group with a vast, what is the word I'm looking for? I would want to be in a group with, just like differences. I want to be able to hear, like, what does somebody do who hasn't lived a day in the life of my shoes, right? Who maybe is a different race or a different gender, or has a different background than me, or just more diversity is better for us to learn and grow from. We can't learn and grow if we're only talking to people who are just like us, because that doesn't give us that expanded view of what our world could look like. So we want to make sure that these groups are inclusive and that they allow people outside of what our little bubble is to be included, so that we have the opportunity to hear from others who are not like us. They might be experiencing the same situation as us. They might be a foster adopt family, or a grandma raising a relative, or raising a teen. Some of those we've already talked about. But beyond that, they are not just like me. And so that's really important that we look at that, and that the agenda is not just about pushing, my faith on you, or pushing a political agenda, or pushing what the school board wants, or those pieces are not a part of what we're actually doing within that community. And then the third thing that I would say you want to look at is, does the group also have like a good educational or informative or therapeutic piece to it, that it doesn't just become this thing where I'm getting together with my community every week or every other week or once a month to just complain and woe is me and isn't this awful and my life sucks, which I'm going to be completely honest, you guys, there's a time and a place for that. And sometimes we do need to be able to just get that out and be able to say, like, it's really hard right now. And this is really hard. Kind of what Lisa talked about last week, where she had someone reach out and say, gosh, I just don't really like my child right now. And that's really hard to say, especially if you're not in a community of people who can relate to that. And it's not a bad thing to say that, but it's not healthy if that's all we talk about every single week. So there's a time and a place for, I just need to get this off my chest. This is really hard. But if that is what the group is about, if that is what the community is about, that is not going to be supportive to you. So you want to make sure that there is a piece to it that allows you to grow and develop and become a better person, a better parent, a better caregiver. So whether it is education, whether it's a therapeutic piece, a coaching piece, you're doing a book group, whatever that looks like, there is something else besides we're just getting together to commiserate, right? So those are the three areas that I would say when you are looking for community. And remember, I didn't say if you are looking for community, when you are looking for community, because the reality is we need a community. We can't do this on our own. We can't raise our children in a vacuum. We have to be able to have people who are like-minded, but also diverse, to be able to grow and stretch us and help us grow as people, as in relationships with others, as parents. And so again, I'll just reiterate that the three things would be making sure that the group or the community is in a similar situation as you, looking to make sure that they are inclusive, diverse, and aren't pushing a religious or political agenda, and making sure that the community has some sort of a educational, therapeutic, coaching, some other component other than we're just going to get together and commiserate. So those are kind of my tips on looking for community. If you have an amazing community and you would love to share that with our listeners, please either send me an email, melissa@mendingfamilieswa.com, or you can, on Instagram, which my handle is mendingfamilieswa, you can go on and post a comment underneath the reel for today that talks about today's episode. I would love to be able to share your group or your community with my listeners, with my followers, and let them know, here's an option. Why don't you check it out? And it's okay to check things out. It's okay to go to a group a few times before you feel it out. It's like an interview, right? We can't just like read about it and decide, oh, this is for me. Sometimes we actually have to experience the people in the group, make sure that we can trust them and it feels right. It feels comfortable. We listen to our bodies and really pay attention to like, how am I feeling with these community members? Does this feel good for me? So if you have an amazing group or an amazing community, please comment or let me know what it is. I'd love to share so that my listeners, so that you guys have a starting point. Some places to look would be, so the Reclaim Compassion groups, again, I'll link that in the show notes. There's also, if you are a foster parent, there's some online community groups through the Alliance in the state of Washington. If you don't live in Washington, I'm certain that there are foster parent groups in your state, whether they're virtual or in person, I'm not sure. Look, if you are a member of a faith community, look at your church, see if there's any groups, but again, be cautious, make sure that it is a good fit for what your needs are. Community groups, schools oftentimes will have different classes or groups. So just kind of do some exploration and put yourself out there. One last thing I want to mention is that I am working on something really cool that I'm hoping to launch this fall, which will involve, by the end of it, some sort of a group. And so I'm not going to give a lot of information right now because I'm still molding it and shaping it. And so I don't want to like make too many promises, but my goal is to, through this new resource that I'm going to be offering, this new service I'll be offering, that the end goal would be that there would be a group by the end that you could then go off on your own and have your people. So more to come on that. If you are interested in hearing more about what that is, you'll need to join my newsletter, because those who follow my or subscribe to my newsletter will be the first to know when I launch, and you won't want to miss out because I'm only going to take so many for the first launch, and it will be a significant discount since it will be the first launch. So join my newsletter. You can go to my website, www.mendingfamilieswa.com, and click the subscribe button, and then you will be amongst those to be the first to know when it comes out. So good luck on finding your community. Let me know about your community so I can share with my people. Join my newsletter so you can hear more about my service that I have coming up soon, which I'm very excited about. And I will see you guys next week. I am excited that next week I have Hannah Talbot from the Hannah Talbot from the Anam Cara Center here in Spokane, Washington, but she does offer virtual classes. So this is really for everyone. She's going to be talking to us more about what she has to offer at Anam Cara, and more about breath work and mindfulness and meditation and how we can help our bodies heal from trauma. So you won't want to miss next week's episode, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Okay, everyone, have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you next week.